I came across a Lizzo video the other day, and I think she was having some sort of meat dish with rice. And I think she was streaming because somebody asked her if she wasn't vegan anymore. And she said that she hadn't been for a while now because her body needed more protein and energy, so she started having meat again. I looked at the comments, and to say they were disappointing doesn't really cut it. They were disgusting. I saw so many angry people hating on this woman just for existing. Some comments were calling her fake, others said she was doing too much, others saying she's in her flop era, and of course, there wouldn't be a Lizzo comment section without people having something to say about her weight. One day she was too big, and now that she's losing weight, the insult is she's probably on Ozempic, cheating and taking the easy way out. It actually made me reflect about what it means to be a woman, especially a plus size one, and all the hate received for existing. I want to talk about when a woman stops playing the role that made others feel more secure at one point, and the shift to discomfort when she stops performing to the sound of their tune, especially when she chooses herself unapologetically. I'll be talking about Lizzo today, but I think the message applies universally. Lizzo has always had this magnetic, joyous energy about her. Particularly when she was bigger, society was more comfortable placing her in this box, the confident big girl box. She was an exception, the entertainer who's allowed to be bold as long as she doesn't cross the invisible line into desirability, as long as she stayed in her allotted corner. The moment she began to visibly take control of her health, her body, and her narrative, really, without apologizing or explaining it in a way that centers the audience's comfort, that invisible contract broke. And now, she doesn't belong to anyone. She's not performing what people projected onto her anymore. She's not staying in the role that made others feel less threatened, more virtuous, more desirable, more in control. That's threatening. And not because of anything she's doing wrong, but because it exposes insecurities in people that they haven't confronted in themselves. People say, oh, she's so fake, because they're really, what they're saying is seeing someone they can no longer categorize. She's real in ways they haven't dared to be. She's not asking for permission anymore. And that freedom, when it's loud, feminine, and no longer playing harmless, it can trigger people who still are bound by their own limitations. Sometimes people love you most when you're non-threatening. The second you become radiant, thriving, or in full possession of your power, especially if that includes beauty or desirability, you become a mirror. And not everyone can look in it without flinching. Lizzo's not perfect, she's human. But the hatred she receives isn't just about her. It's about how threatening it is to witness a woman stop performing smallness, stop pleasing, and still dare to take up space. Before, Lizzo was allowed to be loud, confident, and expressive because she was heavier. And in society's twisted logic, that made her non-threatening. People could cheer her on and see themselves in her, not because they truly accepted her power, but because her confidence felt safe. It didn't disrupt their sense of hierarchy. She was the girl's girl, the voice of the outsiders, the relatable one. Her boldness was charming because it seemed to exist in contrast to what society considers beautiful or desirable. So others were, whether also marginalized, insecure, or simply used to feeling above women like her, could feel included, even flattered by her shine. They could love her like a mascot, a symbol of self-love that didn't threaten the status quo. But now, she's no longer just confident for a big girl. She's confident, beautiful, glowing, vibrant, full stop, period at the end. And suddenly, the same behaviors people once cheered her on for, the same behavior they encouraged, is now seen as too much, fake, and annoying. Why? Because she's no longer performing a version of confidence that centers other people's comfort. She's not code switching her power to make herself digestible. She's visibly thriving in a way that forces others to question why they still aren't. Her presence no longer flatters others' self-image, it confronts it. When someone steps into their full radiance and no longer seeks approval, it reflects something very real back at the world. Why do I feel like I need to shrink? Why haven't I let myself take up space? Why does her glow feel like a threat instead of inspiration? Not everyone can face those questions without defensiveness. So instead they project. They say she's fake. They call her annoying. They criticize her body again, even though it's supposedly not the problem. Because the truth is, it was never about her weight. It was about how she made people feel in comparison. Lizzo hasn't changed that much. She's still playful, lively, wild-hearted, But now she's not apologizing for how magnetic she is. She's not softening herself to fit. That's what people are reacting to. And those who say that she took the easy way out, the argument is so tired and yet so revealing. It's not about health. It's not about fairness. It's about control. And here's the truth. People don't hate the shortcut. They hate that someone else took it and is thriving without their permission. Because if you cheated the system and still get to feel good, look good, be praised, then what does that say about all the pain others have been sitting in? What it does is it disrupts suffering, the worthiness suffering myth. We've been conditioned to believe that only earned visible struggle makes us worthy of change, healing, or beauty. So if someone chooses a tool, whether it's Ozempic, surgery, or a mindset shift, and it works, it shatters the idea that suffering is the only valid currency for transformation. And that threatens people who are still waiting for their struggle to be enough. It highlights their own inaction or shame. Someone else making a decision to change, even if it's different from what you choose, can trigger all the things you haven't done or were too scared to try. It's easier to shame the person who acted than sit with the feeling that maybe you could have moved differently as well. It's about gatekeeping self-love. There's this unconscious belief that only certain people, usually the ones who conform to rigid ideas of morality, effort, and suffering, are allowed to feel beautiful, confident, or celebrated. So when someone skips the script and still claims joy, it short circuits that gatekeeping. It's jealousy in disguise. Let's be honest, if a shortcut made you feel better in your body and your life and it didn't destroy you, wouldn't you take it too? Most people would, but instead of owning that, they shame the people who did, as if it makes their journey not as valid as their own. So when people say, she didn't lose that weight on her own, what they're really saying is, I'm uncomfortable that she got free in a way I didn't approve of. I want her to prove she suffered so I feel better about still being stuck here. If her transformation is valid, what does that say about my pain? How dare she glow without asking me first? Let me say this. You don't owe the world proof that you struggled. You don't need to deserve peace, joy, or softness. You're allowed to choose what works for your body, your mind, and your healing. And you never have to carry the weight of someone else's projections just because they refuse to unlearn their own shame. This is my new account. Like and follow for more.